Rich, wild, and black, old school. Follow me back, rack the slide, dump the mic, and pack the Mac, and in my smile, right? Give me a spin, never the gin, never the hand.
Right. So there's a biological connection that the father has with their offspring, with the child. There's also a chemical connection that men have with their significant other, right? Typically, man and a woman, that's what they call chemistry, right? That's the connection. That's what makes you want to be with this woman. In a perfect world, that chemical connection, that introduction, that bond between you and your mate will manifest in offspring. However many, 1, 2, 3, twins, triplets, whatever it is. And that biological bond that you share with your child then is sort of fostered by that chemical bond that you share with your mate, right? And so that's what you have. That's how you get a strong family bond. That's where you're dedicated to the woman, you're dedicated to the child, you're there to fight, provide, protect, maintain safety, maintain laughter and humility and strength and everything that we've talked about that defines fatherhood, right? The difficulty is now traditionally, well, not traditionally, but now in our society, it's very common to have a separation between those bonds, right? Whether it's you and your lady have made a child and now you're separated, right? And the kids live with you half the time, they live with her half the time, or they see you every other weekend, or whatever your personal arrangements are. So now you have a faltering chemical bond between the parents and a biological bond between the children. Later, right, we'll find another mate, and so now you have a chemical bond with a new lady of which you don't share children. She may have children, you have your children, maybe you don't have any children. And so therein lies the complexity in the relationships. And so that's why you see a lot of these dudes, you're with your new lady, they got kids, you're all about those kids, and your children who are with your lady, your first lady, where you have no chemical bond with anymore, you've broken up, there's a separation, those children lack. So that you have these guys out with the lady and the kids that aren't theirs, but they're not out with their own kids, right? I've seen that before in my own situation. I have just the stepkids, and when I first met them, it was in June, and Father's Day came, which I wasn't part of all that, but the report was their father on Father's Day was out with his new lady that he liked, right? And her daughter celebrating the Father's Day dinner. But his children didn't have any contact with him that day. And it sounds abhorrent, right? It sounds like, wow, that's a lot, bro. But it's more common than you think. I mean, you look around all the time, and these guys are great dads. He's a great stepdad, right? He's hanging out with the kids and doing everything that he's supposed to do. Meanwhile, he has biological children by someone else that he isn't as present with. He isn't as supportive of. And I think as men, it sort of behooves us to figure out, to be aware of those different bonds, right? The biological bond versus the chemical bond. You have to be aware of that. And you have to understand that how you feel isn't necessarily what you need to be doing, right? And how you feel about this ex, who maybe she was horrible, maybe you were horrible, I don't know. That cannot trump your relationship with your biological children. It cannot trump what your responsibilities are to your biological children, emotionally, physically, financially, all of those things. It feels great to have this new chemical bond with this new lady, to have this new relationship. It's wonderful. It feels wonderful. And anything that she brings, any baggage, any positives, anything that she brings, you're wholeheartedly into, because your level of investment with this new lady is commensurate with your level of interest in this new lady. So if you don't care about her too much, you're not interested in hanging out with her kids, you're not interested in hanging out with her parents. It is what it is. But if you're digging on her, right, you're really feeling her, then you take that responsibility, right? Oh, wow, you have children. I'm with it. I'm going to hang out with them. I want to see this woman, to see me as a wonderful provider, as a wonderful man, as a caring individual, as all of those things above. That's what I want. And I'm less inclined to worry about what my ex has to say about that. I don't care what she sees me as. It's irrelevant. I don't like her. I don't care. And so the investment level in what she has going on, her baggage, her positives, her good things, her bad things, it's less interesting to me at that point, if that makes sense. And I think the idea is to be aware that despite the chemical reaction that you have with your lady, despite those hormones and those pheromones and that bond and that love, you still have a biological relationship with your children. And it is difficult at times, especially when you have relationships where one or both members of the relationship are immature. And so you believe that there's a justification there. I mean, you're out with your stepkids more than your real kids? It doesn't even make any sense. It sounds crazy, but it happens all the time. All the time. You know, personally, I'm lucky in that I don't have two sets of kids. I got one set of kids. I can focus on those kids. So there's no comparison. It's easy, right? I don't have to say, okay, well, I've spent 12 hours here. I got to spend 12 hours over here to justify the balance. And I'm frustrated with that. It is what it is. But it happens all the time. You know, and I think that the maturity of parenting will sort of lend us to the ease of biological bonding. And so what I mean by that is when both parents, the father and the mother, understand that their relationship is over, but it's still important for them to foster relationships between each of the parents and the child, right? Each of the parents have to facilitate situations where that child is getting something out of each of the parents. And it looks different for every relationship. I couldn't begin to tell you, whoa, here's the best way to do it, right? Ideally, the best way is that both parents are in the home and they're together and thus and so, but it doesn't work that way. You know, I mean, there's times where you weren't even together with the mom, right? It's just a party. You were out there, had some drinks. It's wonderful. Leave one in her. Now you're stuck. Right. But still, you cannot allow how you feel about the mother to dictate how you feel about the child. And all too often, that's the easiest way out. Right. And I mean, couple that with the feeling of, OK, here's the mother that has the son. She hates the father. So the son looks just like the father. So he's taking it off the mother. Right. All these problems are from, oh, you look just like your father. Your father did that, this, that, and the other thing. And she has a constant reminder of it. And so we really have to get out of our own emotional way in order to foster these relationships with these children. And so I've said this before. My father had one daughter, and I'm not really sure about the relationship. I think they were dating and they had a child, and that was that. And then he married my mother and had two kids left. Right, 2 kids with her. So he's got a total of 3 children. And, he got divorced from my mom. And they didn't really talk to any of us. My older sister, the first, she went back and tried to develop a relationship with him. But since he didn't have a real positive relationship with my mother, he never really interacted with us. Right. And then he went and fostered professionally a lot of other guys. The guys would come in and he would mentor them. I think I mentioned before, he had a business where he owned and operated and repaired appliances. So young guys would come in and get a job with him. He would kind of show them the ropes, and this is how you do the physical labor. This is how you run a business. So he mentored a lot of people. And those relationships weren't necessarily built or based on the relationship he had with their mothers. However, when I was 14, I went and stayed with my father for a summer. The only summer that I ever hung out with him, the only substantial amount of time that I'd ever hung out with him, 2 or 3 months in the summer of 1989. And in that summer, he took me and my sister, my little sister, he had a family cottage. And a family cottage, him and his sisters and his mother and everybody was there. It's like a 4th of July thing. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be wonderful. We're all going to barbecue. We're going to eat. Somewhere along the lines, that trip got derailed. He got into an argument with his sister She stole my weed. Right? You're 45, but whatever. He gets into an argument with his sister, puts me and my little sister in a car, smashes off. That's that. We feel like, okay, well, I guess we're going to go home and get back to whatever it is that we were doing. We went to a girlfriend's house, his girlfriend's house. That girlfriend had a kid that was about 17, Robert. And I'll never forget feeling like, why do you know this boy so well? Why do you have a relationship with him? Why is it that he feels comfortable making jokes, inside jokes that I didn't have any sort of resonance with, right? There was no touchstone for me with him, but he had this relationship with this boy, and he spent, we stayed there for about 2 or 3 days. We'll stay the weekend and hang out. I think in his mind, he thought, oh, wow, the kids are about the same age. They can play together. But we didn't get along. We didn't really like each other. I didn't understand why I was there. I felt held hostage. I thought if we had had a traumatic experience, why didn't we just go home and reset? But we didn't. We went to this lady's house, nice lady. The kid was a child. He was a nice guy. He was trying to be as cordial as possible. But I'll never forget feeling this jealousy of, why does my father, who looks like me, who made me, the whole thing, why does he have a better relationship with this kid than he has with me, than he has had with me? And after that summer, I didn't really see him too much. I don't know if I ever saw him socially again. And I would wonder about that. Are you spending holidays with this kid? Are you buying him birthday gifts? Are you doing the things that a father would do with a son with someone else? I'm the only boy he had. I'm the only son that he had, yet he had a better relationship with this other kid simply because he had a better relationship with that child's mother. And it's heartbreaking, right? And so we have to watch ourselves and understand the relationships that we hold with each person that's in our lives and what the resonance is with those relationships, right? What is your responsibility with each one of the relationships? And they are independent. They seem intertwined, and I mean, at points they are, but they are independent. They have to be independent when you're talking about your children and your spouse or your mate or your ex or your future or whatever it is. They have to be independent because your children that are biological expect certain endeavors, they expect certain activities, and they expect to be the trump card. They expect to be the most important, at least the most important children, right? How is it possible that you're my parent and there's another child that's more important to you that's not a cousin, that's not a blood relation? It's just some nigga whose mom you fucking, right? Essentially, that's what it is. And so what I'm trying to get at is I think it behooves us as fathers to very much identify where our biological children are, what they need, and then provide those things at all costs. And if we have another mate, if we have room in our lives for another mate, then her children, by all means, if you can incorporate those children into the fold, you should, but not at the cost of your own biological children. Besides everything else, it looks suspect. Nigga, you out on Father's Day with your stepchildren, but not your real children who live around the corner? Don't make no sense. Anyway, stay focused, like, follow, subscribe. Dad and Change on YouTube, Dad and Change on Instagram. I don't know, man. Be a great dad. Hey, and come check us out at humblenorthamerica.com for all your Dad and Change podcast needs. Come see what else we got going on in our humble world, and don't forget to follow us on Dad and Change at YouTube, Instagram, and wherever else you get your podcasts.